Everyone to week 4. This week we will be discussing the civil rights movement between 1935 and 1965. Obviously, we have a number of readings, but the main reading will be James Baldwin's Notes of a Native Son, and then Richard Wright's fictional novel Native Son. Now, you will just be focusing on the first book of the work, and you'll be reading 20 to 30 pages of the work. I do have to warn you that it is disturbing. It basically shows a man who was subjugated by white society, and from that subjugation, which occurred at birth, he had rage, and although he was treated as less than, he was also not thought of as human. He was treated as though he were an other by whites, and the sense of hopelessness he had and rage may have contributed to his actions. But in any case, I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts about it. I would encourage you to read a summary as well, because that gives you a better idea of what Richard Wright was speaking out against in the work. Now, we also will be reading a little bit about James Baldwin's quarrel with Richard Wright. James Baldwin was a protege of Richard Wright. He was quite different than him, though, and he spoke out basically against Native Son. He felt as though Native Son was similar to Uncle Tom's Cabin in that it was a protest novel, and Uncle Tom's Cabin had great ideas in terms of it was protesting slavery, but however, the characterization of Uncle Tom's Cabin, especially Uncle Tom, was flat and actually worked to harm the rights of people of color. And so Baldwin was illustrating that Bigger Thomas, the main character from Native Son, was similar to Uncle Tom in that although it's a protest novel, in some cases it actually worked against the civil rights era. So I'll be interested in reading what you think about both of their views. Then there's also another reading that's called Teaching the Controversy between James Baldwin and Richard Wright. I have to admit that it is difficult for me to teach this particular section because Richard Wright's novel is disturbing, but it does bring up some important issues, and it is a work of literature that needs to be read, that needs to be discussed. And although James Baldwin did have some issues with it, there are also other people have disagreed with the issues that he brought to the forefront. Speaking of James Baldwin, though, there is a video that the article brings up in Teaching the Controversy. It is the debate that James Baldwin had with Richard Buckley that was put on TV back in 1965. Basically, William F. Buckley had said all have the ability to achieve the American dream, and that we have done enough to help people of color rise up from their situations. And James Baldwin disagreed with him. And so I just want to give you a short excerpt of this debate. However, I will provide the link inside the forum so you can watch the whole thing if you'd like to. It is rather lengthy. It's not expected, but I do feel as though you eventually should watch it because it is a very, very important debate historically. So here's what James Baldwin had to say about Buckley's argument.
Now, what happens when that happens? Leaving aside all the physical facts which one can quote leaving aside rape or murder, leaving aside the bloody catalog of oppression, which we are in one way too familiar with already, what this does to the subjugated, the most private, the most serious thing this does to the subjugated, is to destroy his sense of reality. It destroys, for example, his father's authority over him. His father can no longer tell him anything because the past has disappeared, and his father has no power in the world. This means, in the case of an American Negro, born in that glittering republic, and in the moment you are born, since you don't know any better, every stick and stone and every face is white, and since you have not yet seen a mirror, you suppose that you are too. It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you.
So in essence, James Baldwin wasn't necessarily disagreeing with Richard Wright's sentiment. It was more of an intellectual disagreement with the characterization that was presented in the novel. So I'll be interested in learning how you feel about this debate and how you feel about the novel in general. I did want to share to you one more video that drives home the issues that Baldwin presented in this debate. The fact that children are taught at a very early age that people of color or black is bad and white is good.
E qual è quella buona? Quale è cattiva? Qual è buona?
That's heartbreaking. So I'm going to leave that there. And obviously, this is still an issue that's occurring today. All right, so we also are going to be reading Gwendolyn Brooks's poem, The Last Quatrain of the Ballad of Emmett Till. If you don't know the history behind Emmett Till, please look it up. This basically shows how Emmett Till's murder by white supremacists affected his mother. Often we discuss how his murder affected society and the civil rights movement. This shows how it affected his mother. And if you're interested, there is a reading that she gave of the work. I did want to bring it back here a little bit too. She's actually a very important poem, and although we're just reading one of hers, she has a number of poems that if you are majoring in English literature, you really should know a little bit more about her because she's often quoted and cited in many other works, including famous professors of English literature in peer-reviewed articles. And another work that we'll be reading today is A Ballad of Birmingham. It discusses the Birmingham events that occurred in 1963, again by white supremacists, that ended up killing 4 black children, little black girls, who were going to church and who were going there to sing and pray, and they were murdered. And the poem shows that no matter what people of color did, it's impossible to not experience the horrors of racism. Okay? So bringing it back to here, this lesson was difficult for me to give So I apologize if I didn't do it justice. I'm really looking forward to our discussions online this week. I did want to bring through some of the assignments that you have this week too. You have a journal that's assigned. I hopefully you have a better idea of what I'm looking for with the journals, and you're not as nervous about submitting them. If you do have any questions about this assignment, please let me know. And you are referencing any three of the works that we have read at any point in this class. I would say that you don't necessarily have to find a connection. You could just do one situation, another situation, or event. However, it would be helpful if you could find a connection between the three. That would make it a little more interesting. Also, you have a discussion forum today, and it's not really shocking. You're going to be discussing the ideas of Baldwin versus Wright. So anyway, I wish you all the best this week, and I'm looking forward to discussing the readings online with you, and looking forward to reading your journals. Bye, everyone.